Hey drummers, I'm Antoine Fadavi. The Working Drummer's Toolbox is everything you might ever need gigging around town, touring the world, or to bring into the studio. In the first half hour of this video, me and my coworkers here at Drum Channel, Chris and Elias, are going to be giving you a detailed look inside our own personal drumming toolboxes. In the second half of this video, we're going to be chit-chatting about some tour stories and creative solutions that you definitely won't want to miss.
I got 2 bars into the song and the beater just goes like that over my shoulder.
Stuff happens. You have to be able to adapt real quick. We've all been there.
He stood there and the stick is like rolling towards the back of his feet and he's like jumping up and down.
It's been a lot of refining it show after show of like finding out, oh, I should have this with me.
In all honesty,
That's true.
I have 2 roles. I am a drummer and I'm also a tech. So you've got 2 different answers there. And it also depends for me on who I'm working with, where I'm working with, and the duration. Is it a one-off show? Is it going to be 6 months around the world?
Right, Elias?
For me, I have 2 complete different lists. One for at-home shows, small, basically the stuff you need to take on the go, and then the actual touring rig, which is a completely different thing, depending on the artist, the situation. It's a lot, honestly. So let's dig into it.
All of the gear we're mentioning is in a PDF spreadsheet in the description. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, click the link in the description, submit your email address, and then you can download the PDF. If you're a Drum Channel member watching this on the site, click the PDF download button below. You can see exactly what you're missing from your toolbox, incorporate it, and be more prepared and more diligent as a working drummer. I think it's gonna be super helpful to you. I have a Pelican 1510. I got this years ago when Pelican didn't have the Pelican Air series yet, but the Air 1535 is the same exact size and it's a lot lighter. It's carry-on size, so you can bring it on the plane. So the first thing that I do with my case is label it with my name, artist that I'm on tour with. If I'm always at a certain position on stage, if I'm like upstage left, upstage right, I'd put USL, USR, just so the techs or stagehands know where to put the case every day. And then I'd put my name, phone number, and then my either like social media or email address. And I also have it on a tag that sits with the handle with all the contact info, so it's redundant. And the last thing is I always write the dimensions of the case on top of every case that I have for the carnet when you travel. Putting the dimensions on the cases is super helpful because when you're rehearsing and your production manager, stage manager, backline tech goes around and needs to measure all the cases, it's here.
All of the people involved in the band that you're with, the management, whoever's handling things, you're showing a level of respect and professionalism to them that's probably going to get you booked again. They don't care how fast your paradiddle is, but these kind of things typically get you work.
Yeah. I started with padded dividers,
Right.
Where you can put lenses and cameras, and I moved to doing it into an empty Pelican and using pouches to put my tools in instead for 2 reasons. The first is that it freed up a lot of room. And the second is that doing it in pouches, you can actually move stuff around stage easier than to have to move your whole case if you need something. If you have an issue with your hardware, you know, like you need a cymbal sleeve or a cymbal nut or anything like that, you just bring the hardware pouch and you know it's in there. This whole panel can be taken off and you can switch it for whatever you want. These don't come with the Pelicans. So if you want to have a laptop sleeve to put your laptop and then chargers and stuff, I love the Shure mic pouches because they're super sleek. And I mean, they feel nice. They're really robust and the zippers are good. They last a long time. So I have one for first aid, Band-Aids, some gauze. I have some tape. I have some wipes. I have some ibuprofen and some other stuff like that.
And honestly, there's a lot of nice metal pieces on a kit that you'll catch yourself in the wrong place.
Oh, yeah. And
Nick the hi-hat. That's the one. Yeah. It always cuts you.
Drum keys. I have a pouch with regular drum keys. I have some Allen keys of different sizes. I didn't bring the rest with me. They're at my studio, but the Tama multi-key that has the drum key and Allen and Phillips and flat and other stuff. And then the drum bit adapter for a drill. Simpad moderators to moderate the sound of the cymbals if they're too loud, 50 millimeters, and then I go up to 100. Miscellaneous pouch, bunch of audio cables, USB A to C, 1/4-inch TRS, cable management, wrap, rubber bands. I have some lanyards to put your credential anywhere. Sometimes I carry guitar picks, just in case.
Do the guitarists have drumsticks?
You bet they don't. And then flashlight.
If you're going out and you haven't done your first tour, having a flashlight isn't always the most apparent thing. One of those headlamps, like a kind of miner's lamp.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
It's so helpful.
It's a game changer. Yeah. Honestly, the first time I got it, I'm like, wait, my hands are free now. I can. Yeah.
And then a phone charging cable and a brick. Next, audio. Some other 1/4-inch TRS for like triggers or anything else. Headphone 1/8-inch splitters. Aux cable, 1/8-inch male to 1/8-inch male. And then I got a bunch of different. So obviously the usual 1/8-inch to 1/4-inch adapters. I have like 5 of those, and then I have some with the screw in
type,
because sometimes the others don't work, and this is always good to have. Yeah, I also carry a 1/8-inch extender. They're always useful. Batteries, I have AAA, AA, and 9-volt. I used to tour all the time with this Boss like effects pedal that I used to like do redundant switching of laptops, and it always required batteries. So I started the like carry batteries, and then I've noticed that a lot of people often need batteries.
It's true.
I'm the only one that has them like readily available.
For me, that
usually
was
other instruments.
Probably quite a few years ago when the Tama Rhythm Watch came out. I'd always use the Rhythm Watch to count tracks. Now, we have apps on phones and things like that, but I always needed a bunch of 9 volts for that. And once again, the guitarist needs one for his tuner.
Right. This might be the one that I use most, honestly, hardware. The clutch.
Oh, yeah.
Wing nuts, some of these, hi-hat seats, some like lug stops, rods, tension rods, some cymbal sleeves too, like just the sleeve.
Yeah. Gaff tape works pretty good there too, though, if you need.
That is true.
That is the best solution.
Yeah.
Gaff tape is your quick. I think we could all agree that gaff tape is probably like number 1 or 2 on the list.
What did I say before we started rolling? I think it's the greatest invention.
Sharpies, king size black, silver, black, gold, red, and I have some Pilot G2 pens, which are the best. I didn't bring it today, but I have a regular black Sharpie that I got from Tour Supply that has a cap that has a keychain on it. So you can put it on your belt, and if someone asks you for a Sharpie, you just take the Sharpie out. There's no cap. If you give it to them, they're not going to keep it because there's no cap. They're going to give it back to you.
That's a popular tour trick.
And it's awesome to just have it there, and when you need it, you just take it out and it's ready. You don't need to uncap or do anything. Cymbal felts, which are mostly Simpad optimizers for me, just because they're clean looking. I have a bunch of regular as well, some hi-hat seats, and then this thicker Simpad ride one, better for rides or heavier cymbals. Then I have some soundscapes. For these, I have sizzlers, and then some bells, and any other kind of knickknacks that might
that's cool.
Add some texture to the sound. Leatherman rebar. I love this.
Yeah.
I have it on me every single moment of the day. Only thing it's missing is a drum key. And then I got some mallets, got some sticks, a bunch of different brushes, and my toolbox kind of acts also as a stick bag in a way.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because I do bring my stick bag, but if I don't have it, and it's just for like a quick recording session, I'll just bring this, and then I know that it'll have this too.
It's good to have the extras though, because you could literally a mallet just like blows up on stage, and you need another one.
Yeah. And then like in my stick bag,
you don't want to put it all in the stick bag.
Yeah, I mostly have it all in my stick bag, but it's carrying. It's like when I tour, it's in my cymbal case, which gets flown, and it's like this also gets flown. But at least if one gets lost, I have another one. And then I got this little shaker thing that a friend of mine made for me.
You must drink a lot of beer.
But yeah, it sounds like very...
That's really cool. I like that.
It's like very wonky.
Yeah.
And it sounds great. Like on recordings, it tracks like super cool. It's not clean.
Yeah. It's not too abrasive.
Yeah, it's really nice. Maracas, just one. Stage towel. If they don't provide you with one, it's always good to have one of your own. Snare wires. Just a regular DW beater, flashlight, gaff, just the small roll, not the big
See,
one,
that's
because
smart.
it's always nice to have the smaller ones. You can put them in every case. AirTag in every case.
Yeah.
It's a must for me.
Very important.
And
And you get
then-
to play the game when you land somewhere and you're like,
Yeah.
here comes
There
the bag.
it is.
I got 2 packs of moon gels, or the drum dots are great too.
Mhm.
I should get some of those. And then little candle and a lighter. I started to bring candles
love that.
places. That's my new addition.
Yeah. And you started doing it on set as well when we shoot.
Yeah, a drum shell now, a little
Yeah.
candle on the side. Or if you're rehearsing and you're like really, really stinky, just put a candle and then it cancels you out
Yeah.
and no one tells you anything.
It's always the drummer that gets stinky, huh? No.
Yeah,
We're sweating.
or the
most.
bass player.
Hey, now.
Depends. Celsius, just in case I need some more energy
Energy.
at the end of the day and I don't want to we're playing and I don't want to go to down the hall to go get a drink or something. It's like right here. And tambourine, also I always put it on top. Electrical tape instead of gaff tape is also super useful for cables and other stuff.
Or as I see you often around your fingers.
Yeah, when I get blisters, it's always great to get the blisters away.
Yeah.
The tape kind of melts it off. Isopropyl alcohol, I buy like the big jugs and then put them in little spray bottles.
Yep.
And those are always good to clean off like Sharpie marks on hardware or just kind of clean off
Also,
anything.
when I was a youngster, actually quite good for toughening up your skin. The isopropyl alcohol
Really?
is actually pretty good at actually helping you with calluses
Interesting.
as well. Yeah.
And then cymbal cleaner, if you're cleaning your cymbals. Power travel adapters, depending on
Very
the country.
important.
Australia,
Oh, yeah.
UK, Europe, South America. Just get like 2 of each and always carry them with you. Sometimes, kick, snare, tom triggers. Always keep like a few. Because like maybe sometimes you want to use them as gates even. And you don't necessarily want to trigger something, but it's always good to have.
That's a very interesting point. I actually saw a lot of conversation on the last Metallica tour. You saw triggers appear on Lars's kit, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, he's triggering!" But it's actually for the gates.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're using the real microphone sound, and then you're closing off the
Yes.
sound afterwards to give it a tighter fat.
It's
sound.
it's a great option. And that's what I do in my recording studio too, is I have kick and snare triggers, but just for gates. So you track them into your interface and then you just gate from, and it's always super precise and helpful. And you don't need to mess with the gates or be worried that it might pick up something else because it's always great. That's it for my case.
I feel like that encompasses like a lot. Like there's a lot of overlap, I think, with all 3 of us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's like a solid foundation of like what you would need touring, doing those types of gigs. That's great. I learned a lot right now.
Nice.
This is a DW bag. I might take maybe 2 or 3 out with me depending on the situation. The one thing I do like about these versus the Pellies is you kind of get a bit of squash to them if you need to like put them into like a bigger tour case or something like that. I actually find these pretty good. And if you're going through airports and stuff like that, it can be used as a backpack as well.
Very cool.
I'll show you some of the stuff that I have in this particular one. I like colored tape. Black tape is essential, but some colored tape as well I quite like, especially if I'm laying out a drum rug for me or someone else, just something to contrast so I can actually see under stage light sometimes. As with like stuff that you've said, having phone cables and a bunch of other things like that. I didn't put everything in here, but I'll echo everything that you said in terms of audio cables. For me, often using a small mixer, some ears, you got to have a bunch of cables handy just to get yourself out of trouble with that kind of thing. Whether it is just you're monitoring yourself with your ears, or you're using backing tracks and you're firing off different songs and things like that. Next thing, kind of marking myself as old school, I always take business cards. If you're in motion somewhere, you say, "Hey, call me." It might be somebody else on one of the other band or the other crew or something like that. One thing that I always particularly like out on the road, clips on the side of the snare.
You can adjust that, no?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That clips on the hoop. This is a Tama one.
Okay.
Actually just bought it. I think it was a new old stock. It's like 30 years old.
Wow.
Sonar used to do them. Thomas Lang uses this kind of thing quite a bit, but it's kind of a different sound to using a ring or gel.
Yeah, very cool.
And I always keep one handy because
Nice.
depends on the size of the show.
Yeah.
If it is a particular room and that snare's just not really working in that room, sometimes this can just make the difference. It's not really for removing frequency or removing volume. It's just maybe just the tonality is just going to work better by having one of these as well.
Nice.
And two things that are absolutely vital for me: the drill bit adapter and the drum key. I bought this particular one as well because my life is full of these keys. I always drop a little dot of nail varnish on top.
Okay.
It's mine.
and yeah, no, like certain things where you know that there's going to be like loads of the same thing around. I just identify it as mine.
That's a really cool way to identify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, because there's not going to be other ones around, and most of my other gear is kind of like red and black, and this is a slightly neon red.
Nice.
And the drill. If I'm in tech mode, this is super important. And I even spent good money on having, good stuff like this and plenty of spare batteries. The other little thing that I found really helpful, I was in a studio once, my dad was doing a recording session, and I wondered what this was. And it's the Tama tension watch. This is one of my favorite things in the
the
world.
P-Touch is great.
I did the old 60s Batman thing of, labeling the thing with a label that it is. But the last thing that I have in here, and they're kind of a bit hard to find now, power wrist builders. They are aluminum sticks.
Okay.
And for me, it's a really good thing as a warm-up to use these. I mean, they weigh a lot. Another thing, when I studied with Thomas Lang, he had some. And it was made by a guy here in the US. These are like a 2B type grip. These are the aluminum ones, and I think they weigh something like, I don't know, 6 times the amount.
Heavy.
But yeah,
that's amazing.
That'll get you warm up.
Having these as a warm-up, these have been around the world and back for the last 25 years with me.
That is super cool.
They also used to do these in brass as well, which were like 20 times heavier. But unfortunately, the gentleman who used to make these passed away, so they're actually kind of hard to find now. But you don't even need a pad. Like I can feel it. They're a big deal to me. They're very helpful.
Very cool.
I am not addicted to many things in life, but I am addicted to Sharpies and having the gold, the silver. Oh no! I don't smell them or eat them. It's not unusual for me to get bought at Christmas one of those like 100 packs of every single color.
I know where to get you.
The other thing, once again, depends on who I'm working with. Each cymbal stand has slightly different diameters of wing nuts and things like that. DW uses a bit of a thicker one. They've got a captured felt in the top as well. Great design,
right?
But maybe you're working with a guy who's a Tama artist, and they use a completely different thread. And so for me, having generic parts that work with most things, and then specific parts that if the guy's a DW artist, I'm going to be concentrating on bringing that. Yeah. All of my stuff's DW. But having the Tama parts there, that's an important part if I am looking after someone else. Similar with the tension rods.
Yeah.
DW tension rods with the high-end kits, they're a stainless steel, much higher quality tension rod. Got to have some of those as well as the general thread type. The other thing for me as well, the DW 101 beater that is the standard one that we normally use, that's pretty good, but sometimes I fancy something completely different. I've got some old vintage full felt beaters that actually have a kind of different sound.
Yeah.
And sometimes, especially in the studio, I might want that sound.
Yeah.
DW's brand new MDD, MCD style beater with you can exchange the actual beater heads. I actually bring some options. A similar way that you might bring like brushes or things like that, I might bring an array of beaters.
I forgot that off my list, but I rarely use that DW 101.
Yeah.
I mostly use the Vic Firth, like the wood, or the, they have another one that's even thicker, that's super punchy, that I love. Yeah. And then the full felt kind of, dead cat one.
That's very
that
cool.
one is great.
And the other thing I'll say as well, beater patches. Like I've had it many times, they bring a bit more focus to the bass drum, a little bit more of a click. You can get into things like the Danmar. That is like the kind of Lars Ulrich kind of like clicky, like 4 to 8K boost.
Nice.
And Danmar even do a aluminum disc. So if you use like a plastic or a wood beater on that aluminum one, you're really going to bring out a lot of that click. Once again, a bit of super glue never hurts. The last thing that I'll kind of go into is, what are you playing to and what are you getting a tempo reference from? So if it's a brand new band that you've never worked with before, quite often having the count off tempo right is really important. You know, maybe you've not done a rehearsal with this band, or maybe you have done one rehearsal and you've made some notes on it, but having like a Tama rhythm watch to count the tempo, to me, that's really important. But yeah, that's really my stuff.
Nice.
That's great.
Very cool.
A lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to rewatch this to like go through what you said again.
Yeah, I think this is super helpful listening to you guys. And for me personally, like having a list that before you do any gig, literally just checking it off. Like if it's on your phone, it could be anything. Like you just go through that, make sure you do the scan, and then just look at all your stuff in your car. Since you guys have talked kind of about a broad spectrum of what you would bring to your gigs, I'll just talk about the stuff that I would just carry on me. You need your documents, you need your passport, your ID, all of that good stuff in your backpack. I bought this backpack, and when I wear it, I kind of look like a Ninja Turtle, but I love it because it's like hard shell. It feels almost, it's like that in between hard and soft case.
Yeah.
I would separate myself into two different categories where I'm playing a lot locally and a lot of private stuff, a lot of jazz oriented gigs around LA. And then I also do some touring and some other things. And those are two completely different sets of lists.
And I want to emphasize that all of what you're about to mention, plus so much more, is on that list that you guys can download. So go to the description, download it.
This to me is a game changer because it's like a little case inside my backpack. All my cables, everything ready to go, hard drive. And this is not even for gigs. Like this is just daily based stuff. But having your, utility, drum keys. One of the things that I personally find myself like having or needing more often is like extra sets of these, but having like USB drives,
flash
having
drives.
your flash drives ready to go, whether it's for the SPD SX or whatever. I wanted to show you guys those little clips that you put on your in-ears that attach to your shirt.
Oh,
those things always fall off for me.
Yeah.
So have like 10 if you can. Mic clips, any little thing that you kind of over time figure out, muffling.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember when you showed me that bag like a year or two ago. I bought the same one.
Yeah, because I found like everything just would end up at the bottom of my backpack, especially when you're like, oh shoot, I have a gig that I have to prepare for, and then you just throw everything in there and it's not organized.
Absolutely.
So game changer for me, for sure. Having two laptops. Especially if you're doing any live tracking, like having the redundancy and all that. Even an extra shirt, like after a show, like if you're like sweating and say you have a long time between, you don't have a green room, you can't change or whatever. Yeah. Having an extra shirt, even extra socks, underwear if you need, you never know.
That's been really great. Honestly, I'm going to download this myself and cross-reference stuff.
Make a new list.
I'm generally always using the double pedal. No rehearsal with this one band. They call me up, hey, in 2 days, can you come and do this show? The first half hour of the set was all segued together. Like no breaks in between it, just song, 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 song. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, da, da, da. I checked it, but the beater flies out of the pedal.
Yeah.
Like I got 2 bars into the song and the beater just goes like that over my shoulder. Left foot, it is. And I'm playing my left foot. So I've still got that second thing there to get me out of trouble until I can take a break to address it.
The same thing happened to me about the beater flying out. I didn't have a double bass pedal, but it was at a festival and I had a spare kick pedal. So that's super useful. But I was wanting to ask you today, has that ever happened to you?
It's happened to all of us.
Yeah.
Often I'll have 2 snares. So, if you've got like a bottom head blowout or a, snares issue or the mechanism doesn't work, I've still got another snare right there or one behind. And most of my kits, I've always got 2 hi-hats. So I can always play a groove on my kit if something breaks. I mean, fortunately, I use really good hardware and I really love my gear, but you never know, something's just not tightened or it's been cold and goes into heat. And
I feel like for touring, that's a great situation. I used to bring an extra snare with me everywhere. And then now it's just like, I just need an extra snare head and an extra bass drum head. You know, if it's on the road, then yeah, extra snare.
You see like guys like Danny Carey, he's going midway through a song killing snare heads and his tech's like, here's another snare.
Have you seen that video of Mike Portnoy's tech changing his beater kick head in like a minute?
Yeah. You know, some of these things actually, I will say, I grew up in the music industry. My dad's a guitarist. I was always around, you know, you're a kid, like people are performing. I was always around the crew and they were always really good guys. And I learned so much, like particularly when I was like 8 years old, going to see The Who. They had one of Simon Phillips's spare bass drums. He had 2 kicks up on stage, another bass drum behind the kit, and another snare drum on a stand behind the kit. And the tech's like, if he kills
Just
a head,
in case.
I can have that kick out and back on again in 20 seconds.
That's amazing.
And same with the snare drum.
At the end of the day, it's a show. Like, it's going to go no matter what. Your in-ear monitors, if something goes out, like, you just have to just keep going. In unfortunate circumstances where you're with a click, like, hopefully you have somebody tapping you or something like that. We've all seen those videos, right?
Yeah.
Like, you literally have to be able to adapt. And that's honestly something that you don't practice. You just have to learn through experience.
Yeah. And I think that's why today's discussion is so cool, is because it's years and years of refining through the gigs what we need with us and share it with everyone online. And I think that's really cool.
I have like my laptop bag, there are sticks in there. A case like this, there's some sticks in there. I split those up, drum cases and hardware bags and stuff like that, just more sticks. Rather than have like 20 pairs all in one place that could go missing.
Right.
Because, you know, I use quite specific sticks. They're not just a pair of 5As or something like that. So it's not like you just run out to the music store and get some more. So I've always split them up between a few different areas on the road.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think same as drum keys.
Yeah, I was
like
just
every
gonna
little
say that.
bag.
Literally, that sticks, drum keys, and then for me, like in-ear monitors, like having an extra pair somewhere is good.
You're spreading them between different places.
Right, exactly.
Because like to me, it's like any pouch that I open in a case should have a drum key. You know, like in my snare bag, there's in my snare, in this, in my backpack, in stick bag, in cymbal bag. It's like anywhere I look, there should be a drum key.
Yeah.
I grew up around a lot of like very proficient techs on very like big shows and stuff like that. And I'll mention there's Bill Harrison, who was the Who's tech for a while. A guy called Ravi Sharman, who was Simon Phillips's longtime tech in the UK. Yard, who was a bit of a legend as a drum tech in the UK. A lot of these guys, you know, like I just ask them a bunch of questions. And I found a lot of great, you know, drum techs were probably as influential in my working drummer's life as other drummers. You know, because if a band's playing, you know, you get to talk to the techs or whatever, or they're doing something interesting. Okay, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And, you know, you learn a lot of other stuff there because their job is to get the drummer out of trouble if something goes wrong.
Right.
You know, and I've heard many different things. Some I've used, some I haven't used. One particular tech would drop super glue into tension rods to hold them in tune. And I'm not quite there at feeling comfortable with that. But that
commitment
was his thing. Yeah. He would drop it in, and then like a certain amount of pressure, you could break it out. But
that's funny.
That to me is
very
dicey.
Controversial.
Yeah. No, that's what, speaking about controversial things, you know, some people see changing heads with a drill. Just to be clear, I don't tune the drum. You know, I'm not just
some skill right there.
Using something like this, especially with DW drums. DW drums have extra thread. So it's a lot more stable for tuning, but you've got to put in a lot more elbow grease to get one lug completely released to change a head. So having one of these that can get that guy off of there really quickly, it saves so much time, especially if you're middle of a show and that pressure, this really helps. Now, it should never be used to over tighten stuff, especially with the DW things. don't trust that the tension rod is in the lug receiver. Just like, oh yeah, I'm sure that's fine. Really make sure it's in there, because
Screw it in first a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And then,
that's
a big one.
If you hit a tension rod into a lug and it's not lined up properly, that lug,
game over.
You've trashed it.
Yeah.
And you might be in the middle of some foreign country and you've got to find a lug for a DW drum or whatever brand you're using. No. I would typically, just put my hand or my fist in the middle of the drum with everything lined up finger tight first, hit each one just until it just puts a little bit of tension in it. Then I'm actually starting to tune the drum. I'm not bringing things up to tension with something like this, but sometimes if I'm teching, someone like Thomas Lang, there might be 14 drums on the kit or something like that. And if there's a time to change heads, we got to get those off and on quite quick. It's quite a small window, and there's always something more important to do. So the drill is important to me.
Nice.
I'm not using this to actually tune the drum. I'm using this to get it ballpark. If like a drum sounds particularly good, I might actually see, okay, that was sounding fantastic. Like, was it higher than or lower than my normal kind of tension? And I would go, oh, okay, that's actually quite a bit higher than I normally use it. And maybe that's something to consider. But for me, if I work with a drummer that I've not worked with before, and I want to know just about where their tuning is, I'll stick this, put it on the head by each lug, and I might make some notes. Typically I video it, and I've got a reference point. So that when we do actually change heads, I actually know roughly where they like it.
Nice.
There's never going to be a situation where they want their rack tom to be ding, and I'm tuning it, it's like bonk. Like, there's never going to be that.
It's going to be close.
I'm going to get it close with the tension
cool.
watch. At home, you guys know me and my collecting. You got like 20 different cases and they might be all the same brand. I'll actually just print a label and just put it on, and I don't need to be opening and closing stuff. Once again, out on the road, having stuff labeled nicely, it's a level of professionalism that I like to bring. Once again, Ravi Shaman, I'm sure a lot of it was Simon Phillips, but they had every component on Simon's rack with little labels, and they would correspond the tops to the bottoms and where each piece goes. So there's never a question of like, it just speeds things up. So I've actually used the label makers for years on my hardware, and it will just be like C1, and each part of the cymbal stand will be a C1 part. Yeah. The thing for me is when I started playing in bigger bands and got my own tech, I could just sit down with him and go, okay, all of these parts belong to C1 and they're memory locked into position and they're labeled. No joke, I could run onto stage. Some of the bands that I worked in, they'd gotten past the idea of sound checking. So the first time I'd see my kit, I'd be running on stage and it's got to be right. And I haven't handled my kit since the night before. Having stuff like this labeled up really helps the techs. So, in one sense, because I've done a lot of teching, I can help people who tech me as well,
That's super important.
So
do you do black on white?
Well, I'm experimenting with this.
Because one of my drum techs on tour a couple years ago was doing black on clear on all the cymbals.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
And so you couldn't see the tape.
Yeah, it'd be hard to read.
You could tell when you put it together. So but it's like, but from afar, there's no like white pieces of tape everywhere. Right. It doesn't look like there's tape. Well, and then when you get up close, you can clearly see it. It's just transparent.
Yeah. And that's been something I've been thinking about because I've recently just got that one. I'm thinking gold on black. I'm starting to like slightly fetishize the available tapes that they have. Yeah. I bought black on red, and it was too noticeable, and I didn't like that. Yeah.
I just started doing this. The Behringer Power Play, it's like a 1 XLR adapter, XLR to 1/8 inch.
Yep.
And you can use it in replacement of a wedge. So if you have a very small gig and they're giving you a wedge, and you can't really hear clearly, or you prefer to have it in your ears, you can take the XLR off the wedge into the Behringer and then plug your headphones into it. And then it's a mono mix, but it doesn't require power. Yeah. And it's this small, tiny.
Yeah. Is it a mixer?
No, it's literally just an XLR to 1/8 inch. It's tiny. And you just plug yourself into it, and then you can hear in mono the one wedge without, too many issues. And I use the P1 a lot, which is the 2 XLR input, and then you get a pan and a volume knob. But that one is powered, and it's a little bigger. It takes 9 volt, but it's a little bigger. It's like a belt pack.
Yeah.
But the tiny one is great to always carry with you
I'm gonna buy one.
You need like a wedge.
Sold. Because a lot of the time, if it is just imagine it's just like a small show or something like that. The biggest thing that I normally miss is the bass drum, and it will be the front end of the bass drum sounding, that kind of 4 to 8K bump. And quite often I'll take a small mixer with me. Depends on how things are running, but sometimes I'll even just run another bass drum mic directly into that just for my own monitoring if I haven't got like a large luxury.
That's cool.
Maybe even just on the batter head. Like if you're just playing a small club,
to get the attack.
My enjoyment of that gig is increased a lot just by being able to hear the bass drum a bit better. Because as soon as you get the bass player on, maybe the stage is hollow and some of the acoustics, if you're losing that bass drum, and I might be kicking that bass drum hard, and I'm not getting that back, it makes a difference on smaller shows.
That's true.
To actually have some reinforcement.
Not only is it more fun, but you're going to play way better.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Like hearing yourself, hearing the attack, feeling the pocket. That's so important.
Yeah.
Like
the other little bits that I'll kind of go into there, obviously, heads. Spare heads for the snare, spare heads for the kick drum on smaller gigs, full set. Sometimes you've got road cases full of heads.
Right.
But make sure, if you are on a gig, sometimes maybe it's like the old bass drum head that you took off, put it in the cymbal bag. If you do have a spare cymbal bag or, something like that, just having a spare there is very handy. Sometimes maybe like a electrolyte, Pedialyte or something like that.
Yeah.
You could have sweat really heavily the night before, or even on the gig.
Yeah.
Something like that to rebalance, that lost sweat immediately after the show. Just you've got to make it to the finish line. It's no good being a hero for the first 5 shows and the other 25 suck because you've not been looking after yourself. And I went into this band situation. I turned up. I forgot my snare. So
happens to all of us.
I made do. I actually taped a brush to a tom-tom.
Oh, you told me this.
Yeah.
And I made it through and tuned it, and it actually sounded
That's
okay.
Amazing.
But ever since that one mistake when I was 17 or something like that, right? I've always had some kind of a checklist, like you say. It's on my phone, and it's really stupid stuff, really bonehead things. I don't leave until I've checked off and I see it all.
Be a habit, yeah.
And I get to the show, set up, make sure that nothing's left in the car. End of the night, before I leave wherever I am, check it back off again.
Nice.
Get home, check, because you never know. You're tired. You might have been on the go for 24 hours and driven 3 hours, and you're not thinking. You're kind of gig stupid after, So stuff like that, when I know that my brain isn't going to be the sharpest, having mechanisms around me is
nice.
You hit on something good there.
Yeah,
Cool.
and I also think another important thing, aside from the list, is having, if you can, having your, this is the kit and all the stuff that I would use for this gig. This is all the equipment, hard cases, Pelicans, I would use for this gig, and having it just ready to go. That has saved me so much time because I'm not fumbling through things before the gig. I'm also not going to forget because it's all there no matter what. Of course you have the list, you're going to look anyways. But I think that's super helpful too.
Yeah. I actually have a slight question for both of you. When you're playing a show and you don't have a full crew and things like that, what do you do with your personal belongings? Your passport, your wallet, your laptop? What do you do with that? You just trust it backstage, or do you take it on stage with you?
I keep this as close as I can. Literally, if you can, keep it on stage right next to you. That's the best.
That's what I do.
Best bet, yeah.
But everyone has their different level of risk.
I try to hide in the dressing rooms.
Yeah.
If there's a curtain, I'll put it behind, or I'll put it somewhere inconspicuous.
Yeah, if you have the dressing room, that's
a lot of the time that goes under the riser. like just before stage time.
Yeah.
If there's a curtain near the riser, or just under the curtain.
This case always is to my right, open. And so if I need anything, it's right here, and then my backpack is right behind it.
Yeah. Tissues is a big one. Like, as silly as that sounds,
That's
like having
true.
a bloody nose on stage or something happens, you know.
What are you
Stuff
doing on
happens.
stage?
Yeah, I've literally been in a show and just out of nowhere, bloody nose everywhere.
Wow.
It's like, could have been a metal show, but
Blood
it wasn't.
pressure or something, maybe.
Or is
Yeah.
it Bossa Nova?
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I think it was pop and rock and stuff, but it wasn't metal, but it was that night it was, I guess. Another big thing for me is I do a lot of reading, sight reading, and I'm in a lot of live situations where I have to adapt quickly and learn the music quickly. So you mentioned and touched on something that I think is so incredibly powerful and good to know is having that metronome with a set list. I use on my phone. I have two. So I'll have the actual Tama, the Tama metronome as a backup. And then I'll have my phone with, there's a ton of apps now. You could set the set list, have the exact order, the tempos, and you literally can go from one to another seamlessly. And I've actually used that live, and it's been helpful. Having that, and then having an iPad or something similar where you have your music or your cheat sheets. To me, I'm like huge on cheat sheets, depending on the gig. You don't want to show up like on a pop gig with like a bunch of charts and stuff, and they're like, you gotta like just know it, you know? So yeah, obviously it all depends, but having all of that and almost being overly cautious and having double the amount, because I'll usually have my iPad with like a cheat sheet or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll have like a written chart just in case. Like, what if your iPad dies? You know what I mean? That's actually happened to me, and you have your backup, another book. So being able to do that and having the adapters to have your iPad attached to either hardware or like a music stand is super important. Yeah, there's so many little things that you pick up, usually from something that, you know, something goes wrong, and just making sure that everything is in order, doing it the way that is best for that situation.
That's so true.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, we have all the gear and stuff, and then stuff happens, you know, and you have to be able to adapt real quick, and we've all been there.
Yeah. Anytime for all the artists that I music direct or production manage, I always go and say, try to do the best show you can with the least amount of stuff, because if you pile on too much, guaranteed you're going to bring more points of failures.
Yeah.
People are going to set stuff wrong. You're going to run out of time. You're going to be stressed, and stuff like that is bound to happen. And like the easiest you can make it on you, the better, and the more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, your kit is a really good example of that. Like, you know, you do a huge amount of great textures and great playing with a kit that doesn't have loads of different components.
Right.
If you were bringing in your kit and you're like, the drum rack's not quite level on the thing, like, and you're spending half an hour on that, and like, Rack Tom 5 is interfering slightly with Rack Tom 2.
Oh,
like, you know, it's quite a different thing.
There's been so many gigs I've had with that kit that is so easy to set up, where I had to like help out the keyboard player, like update his, you know, backline keyboard that isn't compatible with the interface, and then it's like 5 minutes till showtime. It's like, if I had 3 more cymbals and another floor tom, I couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, obviously, you know, you set yourself more time when you have a bigger kit, which is great. There's no problem with that. But it's always nice to know that you can still put on a great show with very little things, so that you also have room to make sure that you're good internally, that you feel good, that everyone's good around you.
Mm-hmm.
You touched on something really important there. You know, like you like your blazing fast double strokes or your Tama bell brass snare drum, doesn't matter anything if you're mentally not in a good place for the show.
Oh,
that's a huge thing. Yeah. Honestly, and I haven't done this enough, but this is something that I've noticed has helped, is if, for me, meditating before, or like literally like not even warming up, like warming up your hands is great and it helps, but like mentally, like warming up, just getting ready, getting in that headspace is just like, oh,
I have
makes a big
a
difference.
something that I listen to.
A lot of times you're not going to have that luxury.
Nope.
Like you just got to go. And that's part of it, you know, that's part of why you're getting called to do what you're doing, to be professional, be able to adapt in that situation.
I wanted to take a little bit of time before we wrap to like share some stories, tour, gig, and stuff. There's one I really wanted to share. The last show we did with the Chili Peppers last year was in Glasgow, Scotland. And like a minute before the show, before we're supposed to head out on stage, I look at my fingers and I'm just bleeding. Like,
wow,
just everywhere. I'm like, where is this coming from? So weird. So we're about to walk on stage. I'm like, what is going on? So I asked the people around me, I'm like, hey guys, I'm bleeding. Like, do you have anything, you know? Cause like my toolbox was on stage with my stage towel, and it's like, we're side stage and it's like not much. So one of the Chili Pepper techs comes up and hands me gaff tape. And so I ripped some gaff tape and I used the backside to kind of like, you know, do this. And it's like, it's still bleeding. I'm like, oh, I mean, okay. So we walk on stage, start playing. First song is like high energy point of the set. It's a big rock song. The record version was played on by Taylor Hawkins. So I'm like channeling his energy. It's really heavy. And it's like getting worse and worse. And it's our first song.
Flying everywhere.
Like, oh boy. As I play through the song, there's no breaks in the drum for that whole song. So song ends, there's like a 1 minute transition into the second song. I'm like, okay, this is my time. So I grab my stage towel, I do my thing, I go into my toolbox, I grab my Band-Aid, I open it, and I'm almost ready to like open it and put it around my finger or whatever. And oh no, the count. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I get back into it. And then it's like somewhere in the post-chorus where there's like 8 bars of no drums. I'm like, okay, this is my time. Put it on, and then I'm good for the rest of the show. But it's like, had I not had it with me, I mean, I'm sure they would have found it, but it would have taken more time for them to, you know, go get a Band-Aid or do something for a tech to come. And it's like, thankfully, it's like, I had it right here and I was ready.
You ever like go for a fill or something and just catch a stick in the wrong place, and you pull the stick out of your hand, like you catch it like on the tom rim, you might, and I sent the stick onto stage. So I did that. It was a punk band from the Jam, and very well-known bass player Bruce Foxton. He kind of really gets into it and kind of jumps up and down and moves around a lot. And my stick went onto the stage, and there was a little rake to the stage, and he stood there, and the stick is like rolling towards the back of his feet, and he's like jumping up and down. And I'm like, to the crew, I'm like, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, no, like, you know, I'm trying to cue to like the crew that like my stick is rolling towards this guy's feet and he's jumping up and down. And fortunately, for whatever reason, he just sort of like turned a little bit and walked away, and it just went towards like the edge of the stage. But that was a really horrible, maybe like it was probably 30 seconds, but it felt like an hour of like me just like, I don't want him to like literally like slip on the stick. And it was just the worst happenstance.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Man. Well, I've already shared a couple of them. One where I'm bleeding everywhere. I just get a bloody nose out of it, like just hits me. I don't know why. And at that time, I didn't have any tissue or anything. So let that be a lesson for you guys, because I swear it's the worst. If you have blood all over your face, you can't do anything. You're not going to stop playing, you know, like depending on the show, I guess you could, but yeah, you just got to keep going. So it's like literally all over the place. That's why you have an extra shirt as well. But yeah, I think after literally that song, like the band just looks back at me and they're like, oh my God, like what happened? Like it was just one song, like what just happened, you know? And they were cool enough to let me like run off stage real quick and grab something to, you know. Another one, a quick story that actually brings up something we haven't talked about yet, is one day I was playing with this band. It was at Disneyland, and I had gotten just crazy sick. Like all of a sudden, stomach flu. Like I just wanted to be in bed, sick. Like you don't want to be there. You don't want to perform, and you're in a situation, or at least I was, where I had to read a lot of music and focus. So having medicine or some sort of like whatever you would need in that situation, like for me it was like Imodium, so that I literally didn't have to go to the bathroom. Like luckily somebody had it, but just think about that's something that you could probably use in those situations. Obviously you have aspirin, ibuprofen, all the essentials, but like Imodium, like if you get sick, like a cold or anything, like tissues, all of that stuff needs to be taken care of. So
I've always had
Another
that
one.
actually. My parents, who'd done a lot of touring, you know, they were always that, like, take your Imodium. You know, like they've been there and done that. And honestly, even just, you know, just small, like a few of something is really good to have in your bag. You know, nothing worse than that when you're there and, you know, you've not slept all night because you've been sick all night and you've got to do the show.
Yeah.
But no one else is going to do it, so you got to do it.
Exactly.
Part of being professional.
Nice. Well, guys, this was so great.
I really enjoyed it.
This was awesome.
This is fun.
Once again, if you want the full list of everything we've talked about today and more, link in the description, download the PDF spreadsheet.
We never tire of talking about this stuff.
Yeah, literally so much.
This is finally just documenting what we always talk about behind the cameras.
Right. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
See you on Drum Channel.
See you on Drum Channel. Thanks for watching the Working Drummers Toolbox. We hope you enjoyed it. If you think we missed something, please drop a comment. Also, we'd love to see what's in your toolbox, so send us a picture. And if you've got any questions, please reach out. We're always happy to help. Catch you next time.